Welcome to PromagEnviro.com. The model code creation for the Walchem WPH and WDP PH ORP controllers. The model code begins with WPH4 or WDP4. The first selection is control outputs. The number 1 represents, for the WPH, 2 powered on-off relays, 2 on-off dry contact relays, and 1 dry contact dedicated alarm. The number 1 represents, for the WDP, 4 powered on-off relays, 1 powered dedicated alarm relay. The number 2 represents, for both the WPH and WDP, 2 pulse proportional relays, 2 on-off dry contact relays, and 1 dry contact dedicated alarm. The number 4 represents, for only the WDP, 4 pulse proportional outputs and 1 dry contact dedicated alarm. The next selection is voltage. The number 1 represents, for the WPH WDP 410, 100 to 240 volt pre-wired with 120 volt plug. The number 1 represents, for the WPH WDP 420 and the WDP 440, 20 feet of cable for the E-class pumps. The number 3 represents, for the WPH 420, 100 to 240 volt pre-wired with 120 volt plug, 20 feet of cable with connectors for the EW pumps. And the number 5 represents 100 to 240 volt conduit cable glands. The next selection is output. The letter N represents no data output. The number 4 represents single isolated 4 to 20 milliamp output. The number 2 represents 2 4 to 20 milliamp outputs. The next selection is options. These are the WPH options. The WDP options are on the next slide. The number 1 represents pre-wired preamp with 10 feet of cable, electrode not included. Electrode should have BNC connector. The number 2 represents submersion, flat pH electrode with integral preamp. Electrode model code WEL PHF 21. The number 3 represents inline flat pH electrode with integral preamp. Electrode model code WEL PHF 22. This includes a 3/4 inch female NPT mounting tee. The number 4 represents inline flat pH electrode with integral preamp. Electrode model code WEL PHF 22 includes a 1/4 inch flow switch manifold and U adapter mounted on polypropylene panel. The code 4T represents inline flat pH electrode with automatic temperature control and integral preamp. Electrode model code WEL PHF 12. This comes with a 3/4 inch flow switch manifold and a U adapter mounted on a polypropylene panel. The number 5 represents submersion ORP electrode with integral preamp. Electrode model code WEL MVF 21. The number 6 represents inline ORP electrode with integral preamp. Electrode model code WEL MVF 22. This includes a 3/4 inch female NPT mounting tee. The code 6R represents inline rod style ORP electrode with integral preamp. Electrode model code WEL MVR 22. This includes a 3/4 inch female NPT mounting tee. The number 7 represents inline ORP electrode with integral preamp. Electrode model code WEL MVF 22. This has a 3/4 inch flow switch manifold and a U adapter mounted on a polypropylene panel. And the code 7R represents inline rod style ORP electrode with integral preamp. Electrode model code WEL MVR22. This has a 3/4 inch flow switch manifold and a U adapter mounted on a polypropylene panel. These are the selections for the WDP options. The WPH were on the prior slide. For the WDP, the number 2 represents 2 WEL submersion style flat pH electrodes without auto temperature compensation. For the WDP, the number 5 represents 2 WEL submersion style ORP electrodes. For the WDP, the number 6 represents 1 WEL submersion style flat pH electrode without auto temperature compensation and 1 WEL submersion ORP electrode. For the WDP, the number 7 represents 1 WEL inline style flat pH electrode without auto temperature compensation, T included, and 1 WEL inline ORP electrode, T included. For the WDP, the number 8 represents flow switch manifold with 2 WEL inline electrodes, 1 pH electrode without auto temperature compensation, and 1 ORP electrode mounted on a 19 inch by 24 inch polypropylene panel. For the WDP, the code 8T is identical to 8, however, it includes auto temperature compensation. The next selection is USB features. The USB feature comes standard. The letter U represents integrated data logging, event and reset logging, and configuration file import and export. Free shipping is available through our website at PromagEnviro.com.